Hi, and welcome to my channel. Now, this is the astrology highlights video for the month of June. But as you can see, for those of you who watch this regularly, obviously something different here. I'm showing a picture here because I wanted to recap just very, very quickly about what was mentioned last month in last month's video. It was about one of the parts was about the Aries moon, or moon being traveling through the Aries sign, sidereal Aries, right before the new moon in Taurus, last month. Now, I had mentioned because there was the moon was in Aries, and I'm pretty sure it was squaring Pluto in Capricorn. But go check out last month's video and fast forward to the part where the moon was in Aries right before the Taurus moon phase. But yeah, there's a couple of things that happened right then that had the Aries theme rather than Taurus. And it was actually in the news, on the news in over here in Australia. Um, One of the things was that there was a certain, how do I put it without doing, um, because I don't want to get the algorithm running with ads because I don't get paid for the ads. But, if you want to watch the ads, that's fine. But, don't watch the ads for me because I don't get anything from them. Um, but anyway, what I'm saying is that in the political arena, something happened there right on the Aries moon where there was a certain connection, let's put it that way, that was of two separate um I don't want to say the actual word because it's going to maneuver the algorithm, but there was two different teams, if you want to put it that way, that had been connected for some years, literally, and they busted up, they broke up, and it was quite unceremonious, because obviously, one, it made the news, but there was also infighting in a sense. And that was the Aries moon because it was in sidereal Aries. But Tropical was saying that, would have been saying that it was in Taurus, but Taurus isn't like aggressive. And Taurus will be stubborn, but Taurus, it doesn't start fights and wars and all that sort of thing. Um, if you're not agreeing with that, that's probably because you're thinking Taurus in terms of the tropical Taurus, because most likely the tropical Taurians are actually, some of them are Aries. Um, but also the other thing that happened, and this was what I was touching on as well, because we've got the higher ups, the ones that are controlling, and the idea of fighting against the control because the square was happening at the time. Um, and the other thing that also made the news was that a certain person had a certain weapon in a certain public place. Um, because they'd obviously had enough of being oppressed in some way. And the warmongering came out, the fighting, the aggressiveness, because it was in the moon in Aries. And this is what I'm trying to sort of explain in that sense, that, once we sort of take notice of what's actually happening and really look into what the real themes are of each sign, then we can make sense of what sign it really is, if that makes sense. Hopefully, I don't know, hopefully this is making sense, but I just wanted to point that out from last month. You can go and check that part of last month's video to see what I actually said about that. But yeah, I don't want to take too much time on this because I've got a lot to get through for this month. And there was a couple of bits that I wanted to do, but I knew I wouldn't make it to upload this in time. So I had to not include those before the full moon phase this month. So that's why I'm doing after what's going on and after the full moon of June. So with that, I will slide this on down now because we're done with that. Hopefully I have made some sense, but just some examples of what happened right on that moon phase, because it was that sign, you know, the aggressiveness is Aries, where Taurus is more wanting to enjoy the comforts of things and luxury and all that sort of thing. The physical body, the money, self-worth, all that sort of thing is Taurus. Taurus can be stubborn, but they're not argumentative or starting arguments, you know, or warmongering, if you want to put it that way, kind of thing. Yeah, and like I said, if you're going, well, you know, I know Tauruses that are like that. Well, that's probably because they're Aries, sidereal Aries. Um, but anyway, so yeah, hopefully that's making sense. But I didn't want to, how do I put it? I didn't want to come across in a way that's sort of like, well, this is this and this is that. But it kind of, you know, when you start looking into what's really happening and the things and all that sort of thing, you kind of have to stop and wonder, well, is this the moon in this sign? Is this really the sign this planet is covering at the moment? And what's actually really going on? And how it affects you in your actual chart according to your rising sign. Okay, so now we're at the full moon, which is going to happen on the 11th of June. This is the tropical side, the tropical system. I say side because it's on the left, and then the true sidereal is on the right. Yeah, so tropical chop it into neat 30-degree sections, which is really much easier to read, but it's not completely accurate because on this side of things, this is what you'd see in a telescope, like the size of each constellation. This takes it into account, and that's what makes the difference in where things really accurately are. If you want some more information, in the description box, there's a link to a video that's actually by a tropical astrologer, and she herself admits that tropical astrology is not about where the placements are accurately. She admits that in the video, so go take a look at that because it's her viewpoint on the differences between tropical, sidereal and true sidereal, because they're both different as well, because Vedic use sidereal, but sometimes it's not just one sign back, it's sometimes two signs back according to the size of the constellation. See, because here we've got Virgo and Pisces are quite massive. Taurus and Sag come in second with their sizes. And then you see we've got Ophiuchus and we've got Scorpio, one of the tiniest. And Cancer's not very big, and Libra's not very big, and so on and so forth. Okay, so hopefully I'm making sense. I'm trying to sort of not take a long time because I know I've got quite a few I want to get through here. But yeah, so here we've got the full moon, and over here, tropical will be saying it's in Sag. But as you can see, this is interesting because this time it's going to be in Ophiuchus. Now, Ophiuchus, as you can see, is right near Scorpio, and it has similar attributes to Scorpio. The difference being with Scorpio, it's more intense plutonic energy, whereas there's an addition with Ophiuchus where it's more about how to heal those energies, how you can use those energies to heal, kind of thing. Deep, like transformational healing, you know? And so we have the moon in Ophiuchus. Obviously, it's, the full moon is opposing the sun. But also it's opposing Jupiter. Now, Jupiter's now in Gemini, 1 degree of Gemini. Over here, you'll find Jupiter's in 0 degrees of Cancer. It makes a big difference, you know, with the themes. If you get it more closer to accuracy, you will get, it will make more sense. I want to put it that way. So we're talking of expansiveness with communication, and look, here we've got also Mercury's in Gemini as well, which is Mercury's favorite sign, quite frankly. Mercury rules Gemini and Virgo. If he's in Virgo, he's exalted, and that can be a bit intense. But Gemini, he's quite happy to be in Gemini. So there's expansiveness with communication. So there's the idea of communicating expansively, right, with scorpionic themes in a healing way, if that makes sense. So there's a real big focus on really getting deep into the what needs to be healed, what Scorpio themes, because we're talking about things that could be taboo, you know, occult. Shared resources is 8th house, which is the Scorpio house, but it's also Scorpio themes. That's what the 8th house is, Scorpio themes. So it could be shared resources. So it could be because the moon is, what do we need to feel safe? What do we feel we need to feel safe? And this is the full moon. So we're looking at what needs to be cleared, what needs to be adjusted, what needs to be worked out, worked through, kind of thing. And so there's the expansiveness with communicating that, and it's the opposition. So it's how do we find that balance with expansive communication in these areas of, it could even be sex, how we're coping with that side of life, whether a relationship or how we view it in general, so it's all Scorpio themes, but this is about something needing to be deep healing, like excavate, really getting right underneath and digging out what's hidden, kind of thing. So how do we do that in a balanced way, and expansively communicating that? I don't know if I'm making sense with it, but it's sort of like going within, I think, but it could also be if it's to do with another person, then it's about expanding on the communication with that other person, that's involved in that sense. If you're involved with someone intimately, communicating any issues, that might be around intimacy, and being able to balance that, balance of opposites. Okay, so then now we've also got well, from last month, because the saga continues from last month, as I said in last month's video, with Jupiter squaring Saturn, and that I drew that terribly. Let's do that again. Jupiter squaring Saturn and Neptune in Pisces. Now, I'm pretty sure last month Jupiter was probably still in Taurus. So this then takes a different take with the idea, again, of expansive communication with regard to Piscean themes. And again, because we're looking at a full moon energy, we're looking at what sort of self-sabotage, the negative side of Neptune, and with Saturn, the seriousness of it, but perhaps it could be two ways. It could be either taking things more seriously, taking the healing more seriously, in terms of expansion, because 12th house and Pisces, Jupiter is also with Neptune in ruling the Pisces sign that they co-rule. But here we've got them squaring, so there's the how do we expand in a healthy way if we've got fears and self-sabotage, or at the opposite, how are we dealing with addictions? Are we expanding that in a negative way? Or if there is addictions or something like that, can we look at it with a more expansive, open mind as to how we could deal with that, how we could fix those things, how we could work on those things and heal. See, we've got deep healing. This is an opening for deep healing, but it needs us to look at these things, in order for that to happen. Now, also, we've got Mars in Leo squaring Uranus in Taurus. So, I know. So I'm really bad at drawing. I have other family members who are really fantastic with art, drawing, painting, whatever. It skipped me completely. But anyway, so anyway, we've got Mars is in Leo, right? So there's the taking action with Leo themes like creativity, children, romance, that sort of thing. And he's squaring Uranus in Taurus. So there's all this stability and values, what we value, who we value, coming through in that sense. So how do we take on the challenge creatively? How do we move forward creatively, Mars, creatively, Leo, with breaking tradition, I want to say, breaking the mold, breaking free of something. Maybe there's some sort of restriction or something, because again, we're harking back to the Ophiuchus full moon. This is a massive, massive opportunity for us to look at what do we really need to heal, to move forward. And Uranus wants to break the mold, wants to break free, wants to be innovative. It might be something like that, being innovative with finances in some way, being innovative with our values, what we value, who we value, and remember that's also including ourselves. Having innovative ways, perhaps to do self-care even. It could be something like that, because we're talking about healing, a really massive opening opportunity to work on healing and clearing some things. Now I'm making a bit of a mess here, so hopefully we're able to follow, or like you're able to follow me, because my mind's sort of jumping around. But yeah, then we've got down here, Pluto is in retrograde again. See, Pluto, the ruling planet of Scorpio, and really Pluto's also with Ophiuchus. Yeah, and so there's Pluto's retrograde. So again, it's the idea of going within, doing that work, because what happens when we go through that difficult time, or we sift through the issue, then we can move forward from there. But if we ignore the issue, things will get worse eventually, or you'll be sabotaging yourself. Remember? Pisces and Neptune, sabotaging yourself by not doing the work. So we've got now retrograde Pluto is squaring both Chiron and Venus. So here we go again with the healing. And Venus is in Aries. So people have probably picked up on that, because Aries is Mars ruled, but Mars is also a co-ruler for Scorpio. And probably by the time I've got this up, people will have been feeling Scorpio or scorpionic vibes as well. So yeah, so which, like I said, Mars is the co-ruler of Scorpio, and it's the ruling planet of Aries as well. So there's this idea of being bold and taking action, moving forward with what we value, which here with Aries is the me, me, me. So this is about the single individual, ourselves, looking at ourselves. This part is about ourselves. And with Pluto in Capricorn, what do we need to purge that we feel might be controlling? Here again, with the Capricorn, the structure, higher ups, all that sort of thing, Saturn ruled. How do we feel within our relationships, or how do we feel with ourselves? Are we pushing ourselves in certain areas and not not being kind to ourselves, perhaps, with this, because this is wanting to take action, but we're squaring Pluto retrograde. So we're needing to look within, but that's the challenge. We need to take up the challenge to look within to see what needs to be purged around certain structures, certain rules, regulations, perhaps a certain person that seems to be controlling, or if we're being the controlling person, you know what I mean? But this also, because it's squaring Chiron as well, is saying, because Chiron's still in the later degrees of Pisces. So again, it's about our being gentle with ourselves, in what triggers us or what might trigger us, taking action with what we value and who we value. And this, I think, this one in particular is talking about ourselves, because it's in Aries. So it's taking the action on what we value and who we value. And purging, removing anything stopping us from moving forward. Again, with the sabotage, how are we allowing sabotage in our lives? Or how can we perhaps pull back from sabotage of any sort? So there's a lot going on. I think I've covered. I usually just like to cover the harsher aspects, because really look, we've got a grand trine there too, with Mars and Chiron, I think, maybe, and the moon, a Fucus moon. So there's this sort of energy of, if we're willing to do the work, it's going to be in our best interest. And it's not necessarily going to be a tough thing. It's just about balancing opposites and taking on those challenges, and communicating effectively and in a healing way, if that makes sense. Hopefully this is making sense. Yeah, so I'm gonna move on to the next one. Oh gosh, there's a lot. But yeah, hopefully this has made sense, but it does make a difference what signs you're actually looking at. And again, like I said at the start, looking into the actual themes of what's happened versus what the sign, or whether it's this sign, you know, because if it's in Sag, well, the themes surrounding that for absolutely everyone really the main themes will be higher learning, overseas travel, the world at large, all that sort of thing. Philosophy, that would take center stage. But here we've got a focus, and we're having some, deep energies that are quite scorpionic, and Scorpio is not Sag. You know what I mean? Um, anyway, let's move on to the next aspect. I really hope I'm making sense here. Well, if I'm not, I don't know. But in my mind, it makes sense. For me, for me, it's got to make sense, And so if someone's saying, for instance, that there's a Libra moon, this isn't Libra moon, but for instance, if someone says, oh, it's moon in Libra, well, it's going to be all about relationships. But if what's happening in the actual what's going on, if what's happening is more about looking after your health, um, being organized, getting your ducks in a row, duties, that's not Libra, that's Virgo. See, there's a big difference with the signs. If you sort of take that chance to take a chance on yourself and look into, okay, they're saying it's this sign, what's going on, what's actually playing out, and how could that be explained with that sign? Or is it actually a sign previous to it, such as, like I said, instead of Libra, is it Virgo or whatever? Instead of Aries, is it Pisces? Because there's some people that believe they're tropical Aries and they're actually sidereal Pisces, because they're quiet and they're peaceful and they hold back. And there's some Taurus, like I said earlier, that are very aggressive, where there's others later on that aren't aggressive. You know what I mean? And the aggressive ones are more likely to be Aries. Um, yeah, so it depends on your chart, and it also depends on certain placements too, because that, sometimes it can be explained in that sense if you happen to have Mars in Aries or something like that as well, maybe. I don't know. Um, but anyway, now we're on to the 14th of June, and we've got Sun square Saturn and Neptune. So that was the main culprit here, because we already covered Mars with squaring Uranus, Mars in Leo squaring Uranus. The moon's now moved into Sag, where over here it'll be saying it's in Capricorn. So yes, so we have Sun square Saturn. Where is Sun? There. Sun square Saturn and Neptune. So our who we are, our creativity, how do we balance that? Our creativity in terms of, because that's Leo, Sun rules the Leo sign. So our creativity in terms of what we value, how do we take on the challenge of Neptune and Saturn in that sense? Because now we still have Jupiter squaring Neptune and Saturn, but now we've got the Sun also doing the same. So our creativity in terms of what we value, and how do we not self-sabotage, and how do we take a serious look at it, while keeping the peace, I want to say. Okay. In a peaceful way, because Pisces likes to be peaceful. Nebulous, but not allowing ourselves to be hoodwinked, because here again, this is after the full moon, so we're still in full moon energy, so to speak. And that moves all the way through to just before the new moon. So this is again about what might be sabotaging, what we might not see. This could be hidden enemies too, because that's another thing. Because where Libra is open enemies, and that's, the legal, not the legal system as open enemies, but that, Libra covers the legal system, but also it covers open enemies, because who you go to court with, well, you pretty much, if you're unfortunate enough that you have to do that, you will know who you're going to court against. Whereas hidden enemies are very sneaky, and they can completely throw you off and take you, uh, what's the word for it? Take you by surprise. So you really need to keep an open eye, so to speak, and not allow yourself to be manipulated, and to be able to get the rose-colored glasses off, because Saturn's saying, let's not wear those rose-colored glasses when we're looking at what we value and how to be creative with what we value. Because if someone perhaps offers us something that seems like it can help us to be creative with what we value, we need to not have the rose-colored glasses on, in terms of is their offering actually genuine? Can we trust that person, for instance? So that's an example that can happen there. Now we've also still got Pluto squaring Chiron, and we've got the moon. Yeah, the moon's squaring. Where's it going to? I think it's also squaring Chiron. Who's got? Yeah, I think Pluto's still squaring Venus there, but see how they're a lot lighter, so that it's dissipating now. Those energies are dissipating. So the ones that are still stronger, as you can see, the darker red, are the ones that we need to sort of take a bit more notice of. Don't allow ourselves to be hoodwinked over our values, what we value, or who we value. This could also be like, in terms of who we value, are we placing too high a value on someone, or the other way around, are we not valuing someone enough? It could be anything like that. Although it's not really Libra, but Venus is still here and slightly squaring the Pluto in retrograde. So, yeah, so this is about, yeah, what do we value? Who do we value? Are we having a clear view, a clear idea of where we want to go, and how we want to, what way we want to be creative, without sabotaging ourselves, or without allowing someone else to sabotage us, if that makes sense. And here we, again, like I said from earlier, with Mars squaring Uranus, being innovative with what we value and who we value, being innovative with the way we go about it, how we experience that, how we deal with it, taking action in a creative way, with being innovative perhaps, and breaking the mold, breaking free from what might be sabotaging us. See, so this theme is kind of still continuing in a sense. Yeah, so I think we've covered that, because again, I'm trying to sort of not take 3 hours with each video, but yeah, well. Anyway, let's keep going. And now we have a partial T-square with Mars, Moon, and Uranus. That sounds lovely. So I say partial because, again, these are not strong, but they're still there. So we've got Mars, the Moon, and Uranus. So the Moon's in Capricorn. What we need to feel safe, right? Or what we feel we need to feel safe, or what we perceive we need to feel safe around perhaps ambition, career, being organized, taking the lead in some way, because again, the taking the lead could be Leo as well, but taking a lead role or being the boss of something. And how do we feel comfortable being the boss of something, Um, it might be asking us that question, Mars taking action with creativity and taking the lead in something. This is breaking the mold, breaking free, being innovative with what we value and who we value. And this again might be, are we fearing taking the lead? Are we fearing moving forward in some way or being the boss of something? Or is someone else being too bossy, and we need to, break free from that and take a creative, innovative look at how we can feel more comfortable within that situation if we can't leave the situation. Or, if we really need to be so bossy. So, because it could be one way or the other. Either we need to look at, is this what's happening to us, or are we doing it ourselves, or are we avoiding being a boss of something? And still, like I said, the saga continues with Jupiter and the Sun with their square, like I just said with the last chart. But yeah, I'm just trying to sort of get snippets, like to explain bits and pieces of what this could mean and how it might play out. Yeah, so with this, we've still got that full moon theme energy, the needing to clear things up in some way, the need to make adjustments or remove something or make some sort of change in some way, whether that's allowing ourselves to level up in some sort of role, or maybe stepping down if we're a little too stretched with our responsibilities, or stepping down or stepping back, or if it's a little too much. I think I just said that in a different way just now. But yeah, it could be one way or the other. Either someone else is too bossy, or someone else needs to step up and we need to step back to allow them to step up. Or we need to step away from someone who's being too bossy or something like that, perhaps. And again, because this is Capricorn and Pluto's in Capricorn, this could play out in the arena, with the idea of who's being aggressively bossy around well, there's creativity. I mean, creativity is great, but creativity can also be used in a negative sense. And this might also be coming out that someone's being creative in a negative way, and Uranus wants to break free, right? Who and what we value. So there might be some sort of thing going on in that sense as well, you know, the idea of someone wanting to break free or something breaking free, being exposed, because Uranus is pretty much the same with Pluto. This purging, this exposing, this getting it out kind of thing. Uranus just breaks everything apart and doesn't want to stay, you know, restricted in one way kind of thing. But there's also the innovation or innovative idea, you know, and technological, because it's Aquarius's ruler. So there could be something with technology, you know. There's the creativity. It may be some sort of technological thing that's, you know, a bit, although it's creative, it might be self-sabotaging or sabotaging others. Remember when we were talking about that with these guys and the square there? So yeah, that's a few ways it could be playing out. I really hope that this is making some sense. But again, it's the idea of looking into what plays out around these dates, you know, and what themes are really happening. So from what I've said, I've been covering true sidereal signs. But yeah, if you're following tropical, really look into, well, is it really Aquarius themes? Because Moon in Aquarius squaring Mars, which is right at the tail end of Leo over here. So Mars in Leo, they've got that the same, except it's different degrees, obviously. Uranus is also still in Taurus here, but again at the later degrees of Taurus, where it's in the earlier degrees of Taurus over here. So these two, you know, sometimes it does pan out that they're still in the same signs, but over here we've got the Moon over here in Aquarius versus Moon in Capricorn. So what's going on? Is it really social circles, groups, friendships, or is it who's taking the lead, who's being the boss, or who shouldn't be the boss, or what's being controlling, which is Saturn, and Saturn ruled Capricorn. So, you know, the idea of what is playing out and what can we really honestly equate it to, which sign can we actually equate it to, you know? For me, it needs to make sense. And so that's why I follow True Sidereal instead, Topocentric, because this is how you'd see it through a telescope, um, astronomically, the actual true placements. Okay, so I think I'm done with that one. So now we have on the 20th, Mercury square Chiron and the Moon. So we've got Mercury in Gemini over here. Tropical is saying Cancer. Now it's squaring Chiron and the Moon that are both in Pisces now. So gentle Pisces, and again, because we're still passing through the phase of the full moon energy, because it's not just the full moon isn't just on that day or a few days prior to or after. It really is still lingering in that sense, right up until the new moon hits, kind of thing, right before, you know, because the balsamic phase, those 3 days prior to the new moon, what's called the balsamic phase, that's the healing phase, which is still the final stages of the full moon energy petering out, so to speak. You know what I mean? It's where we're still clearing and adjusting and preparing ourselves so that we can then jump into the new moon energy, the new energy, which is a different type of energy, if that makes sense, you know? So yeah, so we've got, as I said, because we've already covered the other ones, and I kind of didn't want to drag things on too long because I don't know who will actually watch this in its entirety, whatever. But yeah, so having covered the others already, and as you can see with the Mars Uranus square, it's dissipating now. It's not as strong by this date. Yeah, so now we've got Mercury still happy in his favorite sign, Gemini, because he rules Gemini and Virgo, as I said earlier, but he's happier in Gemini, way happier than any other sign. But yeah, so Mercury's, in the communication sign and the communication planet. So this is very well placed to be able to communicate how we can safely deal with some of our chiron wounds, and we've still got some sextiles and trines, and here we've got, which is good, with Pluto trining Uranus, the breaking free, chance to break free. So this is really, I think, a lot of this month is going to be about clearing out and healing what we can, any old wounds or any wounding thought patterns, for instance. See, with communication, how we think, how we communicate, how are we communicating? Is it sabotaging us? Remember, we've still got the Neptune here, but Neptune is, wait a second, that's not Neptune. Yeah, Neptune's over here. Okay, so yeah, it's still the moon, and what we perceive, we feel, or we need to feel safe, communicating, clearing some of our wounds, chiron wounds from way back. And wounding can be just simply, like I said, thought patterns. So it's a way of thinking, how we're thinking, how we're approaching, how we perceive certain things, what we think, how we communicate, how we speak with others, how we speak to ourselves, because this is Uranus is still in Taurus, and that's like I said, the Taurus themes of values, whether that's money, people, things, or self-worth, whatever we value, including ourselves. And there's a trine from retrograde Pluto to Uranus. So there's the idea that we have that opportunity to break ourselves free of limiting beliefs, because now we've still got Neptune and Saturn over here with the Sun and Jupiter. So we've still got that from they've been there a while, and this Sun will be here for a little while, but not as long as Jupiter, because he'll move quickly out soon. But yeah, so it's what we feel safe with, but in saying that, have we hoodwinked ourselves, manipulated ourselves into believing that we feel safe, not looking into what needs to be cleared or what needs to be worked through with chiron wounds? That's not a thing that's easy to look at. We're looking at ourselves and what's holding us back, what's sabotaging us, or looking into that sort of thing. Retrograde, it's perfect for, and Pluto's retrograde for a very long time, Anyway, so these are our opportunities to look into what needs to be purged, and with this trine to these two big planets, that's a really fantastic energy to take on the challenge to communicate what we feel safe with versus hiding ourselves away. Like we can communicate in a safe way to clear wounds that are sabotaging us, but also by looking at that way, like communicating, looking into what can be cleared away, what can be worked through, worked on, what can be purged in a peaceful way, um, and then that in turn will help us to feel more safe because it won't be like this monkey on our back and constantly an issue that's never been resolved kind of thing. So this is our opportunity to communicate some healing in some way, because that's where it kicked off with Moon in Ophiuchus, remember? Full Moon in Ophiuchus, which technically is still that energy. As I said, the full moon energy still lasts for the 2 weeks pretty much prior to the following moon phase, the new moon. So I think that's all I wanted to say with that. So it looks like for the majority of this month, there's a lot of healing work. But in saying that, I think the whole point to any healing work, I mean, we're never going to be healing all of our Chiron wounds. Obviously, that's just to say that would be ridiculous. But using the openings to work through those things is going to open us up to better and more easygoing experiences by not holding on to things, not holding on to grudges. I've just got that in my mind as well. That's a hard one for me too, because sometimes I hold a grudge for people who screwed me over. It's not an easy thing to let go of. But yeah, that's something that perhaps, maybe that's something I need to work through, to be honest. That's another example. Okay, so now the next one is going to be the following day. But I got guided to do this one too. And so this is Pluto square Chiron and the moon. So now the moon is in the, oh, that's terrible. Like I said, I apologize for my drawing lack of skills, but it is what it is. Now, again, yeah, it's still bad. There you go. It's in the later degrees, see 41 degrees, it's right at the tail end of Pisces, and usually either at the very start or the very start or the very end of the actual constellation. It can be quite an intense energy. And that's where the sun also squaring Saturn and Neptune, that might be a bit intense with those energies as well. Um, oh, I'm just wrecking it there. Anyway, so we've got Pluto is squaring these two guys. Now Pluto's retrograde, and so here we go again with digging into, and Pluto's at the early degrees of Capricorn now because he's retrograde. So healing what we need to feel safe around. I didn't pull this out beforehand, but I think around authority figures. Maybe there's some sort of healing that needs to be looked at, in that sense, with regard to authority figures, or it could be healing what we need to feel safe around taking authority and taking the lead and having structure in our lives, being organized, being ambitious, healing that side of things. If we sabotage ourselves by not taking opportunities because we're afraid, or because we might have what's it called? Oh, not fear of missing out. What is it? Imposter syndrome, that's the one. If we feel like we're not good enough or something, I've fought that off, quite a lot. That's another thing for me, perhaps as well, that I can look at, the idea that um feeling safe with, like now even, doing this video, feeling safe with giving the information and knowing I'm doing the best I can with the knowledge I know. And hopefully it's getting to, the right people, the people that will understand where I'm trying to go with this, like as in how it will make sense for you. Um, yeah, and how you can work with these energies yourself and how you can make more sense of the energies as they the transits um each month, getting used to each thing and the themes and what it might mean, how it might play out for you, how it might play out in the wider world, because this also might be around um, who's been authoritative. Well, that's not it. Authoritarian. Mm. Um, yeah, because I don't think that other word is a word. But yeah, who's perhaps using their authority in a negative way. Again, Capricorn can talk of CEOs, higher ups, the people who are the face of companies, or government even, whoever might be um, using their authority in a negative way. And so this might be triggering, the Chiron wounds. What do we need to feel safe? Because Pisces is a gentle energy. Capricorn's not really known to be gentle. I mean, it's not a fire sign, but it's not necessarily known to be gentle. It's very matter of fact. We're going to do this way, you know, um, get things done, bam, 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 kind of thing. It's not, um, it's not really known for being concerned about how other people feel, in the negative at least. And again, it depends on whatever else is in your chart, but just, basically, um, Capricorn is more interested in getting things organized, in taking the lead, in being in authority, in climbing the ladder and being ambitious, that sort of thing. Um, you know, and so there may be wounds triggered, right, with with the idea of who's in authority and what they're doing and how it's affecting others, in an emotional sense, triggering wounds. Because a lot of the time we might not even realize we have wounds until someone does something, and then bam, we're triggered, suddenly, and we never really expected we'd be triggered by a certain action or a certain ruling or a certain past bill or whatever they call it. It could be anything, or a certain person taking the lead and saying this is how things are going to be, whether you like it or not, kind of thing. Um, and so that's going to be difficult to take. And as we can see, it's right at the tail end. The moon is right at the tail end of Pisces. So moving on to the next day, it's going to then head into Aries, which is going to be volatile because then the wounds will be triggered, right? And then if anyone is misusing their authoritative power, in a negative way, then, well, I mean, if you're misusing it, it is a negative way. But yeah, if anyone's misusing their position of power in any form, whether it's some business or company or the government or whatever, or a relationship, friendship, it could be anything. It depends how it plays out for each person and in the wider world. But yeah, this could be a a volatile situation again, like I was saying right at the start of the video with the moon in Aries. And here we go again. Moon's going to rock up in Aries again for a short time. And we've already got Venus in Aries. So Venus again is about the relationships, including the one with ourselves, what we value, who we value. It could have something to do with finances as well, because we've got these guys in Taurus, and Venus covers, well, Venus rules Taurus and Libra. So there could be that idea of again, values including money could come to the fore in some way, which will be triggering. And once the moon has moved into Aries, that could be a volatile situation with people who don't realize, how do I put it? Because not everyone follows astrology, right? So some people aren't going to know that these aspects are going to be happening. The square, which is a challenge to deal with these energies in a productive way. But again, it's at the later degrees of Pisces, but it's very quickly going to move into Aries. So there's that idea that trying to keep the peace, because Chiron's still going to be in Pisces, trying to find a peaceful way to deal with it, or maneuver away from it if possible, and at least try not to allow ourselves to be triggered by other people's over authoritarian issues. But again, I come back to it could play out in someone needing to take the lead and being fearful about not taking on that lead because of previous perhaps wounding of authority figures, and perhaps holding back from being in an authority position yourself, or just simply worried that you don't know if you could pull it off. But taking on the challenge and accepting the challenge of, yes, I will actually do this role and I'll do it well. And then Aries comes along, and instead of the aggressive volatility, it can be you feeling empowered, because of the fire side of things, you feeling empowered by taking on that role and knowing you can actually pull it off. You can actually do it well and not be negative, like I said. So there's different ways it could play out. Hopefully this is making sense. But yeah, sorry, I didn't actually do the tropical one. But again, I follow I'm pretty sure you know by now, I follow the True Sidereal system. So yeah, sorry. Well, what were we talking? We were talking about Pluto, because see, again, Pluto over here is in Aquarius, and we've got Moon in Taurus over here, and Chiron in Aries. So there, again, there's different energies there, but still, we did touch on the Taurus themes because Venus is the ruling planet of Libra and Taurus. And Uranus is in Taurus, and so is the Sun. So they're also having aspects as well. So that's where it sort of melts into each other in that sense. But yeah, again, I really hope I'm making sense. I really don't know. No one ever tells me. I don't know. I'd like someone to tell me what they think of this. But anyway, yeah, so now we hit the new moon. So we've got a new energy. So we've got new moon in Gemini. So the communicative side. And so we've still got a T square, but it's not, it's only a partial still, see, with Mercury, Pluto, and Chiron. So the communicating, purging what issues we may have surrounding, past wounds. So new moon in Gemini over here, tropical will be saying it's in Cancer. Now we've already covered the square going on with Saturn and Neptune and Jupiter. We covered that last month. That's been, like I said, an ongoing saga. Now the T-square, I just covered that pretty much as well. So it's not a full T-square. As you can see, it's very light there and it's lightening up there too. So the main one is the opposition of Mercury and Pluto, the balancing the opposites, which happens to be the opposite signs as well. Capricorn and Cancer are opposite signs. If you're Cancer rising, you'll have Capricorn in the 7th because it's your descendant, and the same if you're Capricorn rising, you'll have the Cancerian sign as your descendant in the 7th house. So, and again, I really am bad at doing these drawings. There. So that's really the main thing, even though it's a T-square, it's still mainly this opposition is the main focus here of communicating, finding a balance with communicating, purging of structures that don't work or structures that are imposing our family life, you know, or wherever Cancer hits for you. Cancer might hit in your 8th house of shared resources. Who knows, or your 11th house of friendships and groups and social circles and so forth. That depends on your rising sign. But the idea of the Cancerian themes, home, family, creature comforts, and balancing the opposite of the Capricorn themes, but purging. Again, it's the inside, going within, looking at what needs to be cleared, what needs to be adjusted, making adjustments with probably rules and regulations or authority, or who's in authority or who needs to take authority, or being an authority of our own life. It could be anything like that, you know, ambition, being ambitious with Cancerian themes, depending on where that hits, what house it hits with you guys. Again, according to your rising sign, but there's this communication, new moon. So there's this new opening for communicating. And so now we've got the planet of communication in the sign of Cancer. So communicating in a gentle way, really. Cancer is a gentle sign like Pisces, where it's really about nurturing the home, mother, creature comforts, you know, having a lovely meal with those you love, kind of thing, that sort of thing. Curling up with your favorite blanket or whatever, or your favorite pet, or, you know, that sort of thing, even, although that's more 6th house. But yeah, so communicating in a gentle way while balancing the opposite of purging any issues around authority or regulations, rules, being ambitious, you know, either overly ambitious or underly ambitious, if that makes sense. So it's sort of a pendulum swing in a sense of which way that would go. But there's the communication, a new opening to communicate in a good way. Like this is the new moon, so this is new moon energy. So now we've got really easier energy, bringing in new structures with regards to home and family, or what feels like home and family. Now that could be in the sector of career, you know, who you work with could feel like family. It might be bringing in structures in that sense, communicating, bringing in new structures that are going to work for everyone, where it's like sort of family easygoing vibe, but purging what doesn't work and communicating what can work instead that will be healing, you know, all round, really, healing of whoever's involved in a butterfly effect kind of way, in a sense. What else do I want to say? These things, because we've already covered that. And that's almost non-existent now, this square with Mars and Uranus. So it's not really that difficult anymore. It's sort of tapering off. But yeah, so I think that's about it, about, you know, purging any structures and rules and regulations that perhaps aren't really feeling fair, or that aren't bringing in the peace, you know, or aren't perceived as bringing in the peace, because the moon, again, what we need to feel safe, and this is the new moon, so it's going to bring in new structures. We can bring in new structures and new ways of doing things, new ways of organizing, new paths to become ambitious, or new ways to allow ourselves to be ambitious, you know, climb the ladder, be okay with that, you know, be comfortable with that, be comfortable with communicating what we want and need, you know, because again, like I say, it's the new moon energy, so it's bringing in the new, and a lot of focus around communication in that sense, which is really fantastic. So, and again, we've got trine again with Mercury and Saturn and Neptune this time. So they're trining now. So that's also easy that way, because it's not, now we've got new moon energy. It's not about sabotage. It's about, you know, easy going with the flow. Because I felt, even though I was looking at the Cancer sign, I did feel the Pisces easygoing, gentle energies that way as well. And here we've got the trine, you know, then we've got some sextiles going on as well. So yeah, I think that this, with all the work that we were doing leading up to this date, it's now we've got that opening to communicate where we want to go and how we want to look at success, ambition, climbing the ladder, getting organized, or being an authority, or how we look at authority figures, or who we want to be in authority, perhaps, or if we ourselves want to be in authority, or if we want to stay there or not. But this is more about an opening for bringing in the new in an easygoing, peaceful way that benefits ourselves and others, you know. I think that's about it for that one, for the new moon. So I think we've got one more to go here. So we'll just clear that. I keep forgetting to do the signs for here. So this was new moon in Cancer. So see here again, because we've got Mercury in Cancer, that's where the Cancer energy is coming from. But here, over here, they're also saying Mercury in Cancer. So sometimes things will line up just different degrees. See, it's saying 28 here, where it's saying 3 degrees here. So it's right in the early degrees of the Cancerian sign. So what else did I say? The trine. Because yeah, they're saying they're in Aries, but they're not yet. See, they're further back in Pisces. Saturn and Neptune are still in Pisces, they're not in Aries. And here it's saying they're in Aries, because Aries would be aggressive, being aggressive. So again, perhaps take notice of, are people being aggressive and forceful? Because with these themes of Saturn and Neptune, you know, aggressively trying to push not, or not being hoodwinked, or what would that be if it was that? Because it's not. That's what's that's confusing to me in a sense, because I know this is where it is, or will be, because it's not the 25th of June yet. When it is the 25th of June, this is where they'll be placed. But yeah, this will be sort of a more aggressive energy, because that's what Aries is. Aries is me, me, me. So it'd be about, what do I need? What do I need? Whereas this is about, working with others, communicating, being communicative, which, I mean, yes, you can communicate with the universe and God or whatever you believe in. Yes, absolutely. But also communication in a basic sense is that we need someone else to indeed be able to communicate with. So this is where another person comes in, other people. Whereas over here, this would be the me first sort of attitude with regards to the trine, communicating how to get ahead on our own by ourselves, with nothing to do with other people. Whereas this will, because it's home and family as well, communicating, taking the lead, or who needs to take the lead, or who needs to let someone else take the lead, or being ambitious, or someone else that needs to be ambitious, perhaps, or that might be how it may play out with someone else stepping into an ambitious sort of energy, or taking the lead, or taking a more authoritarian, authoritarian, not authoritarian, because that's actually negative. More of a role in authority, being in authority. But see, this again, it's new moon energy. So, and with the trine, as I explained before, it's actually going to be easygoing and gentle, and yeah, moving ahead after all the work we did prior to the new moon. Okay, so the next and final one, I'm pretty sure this is the final one. Yes, because it's the 29th of June. Okay, so now we have Pluto opposing Mars. Yeah. Oh, I've written Mars. No, it's Pluto opposing. Oh, I got it wrong there. Pluto opposing Mercury and squaring the moon. Oh, Uranus squaring the moon. Okay, so Pluto, because I was like, hang on, what? I was like, oh no, but yeah. So no, I've written Mars. Okay, I've written Mars on both of them. It's not Mars. It's Mercury. Um, well, Pluto's in retrograde, and actually, by around this time, we're probably going to start to feel the retrograde energies of Mercury anyway. So, because Mercury's going to go retro in July. So, yeah, that's my excuse anyway. So, I've stuffed up, but hey, let's keep going. So, yeah, Moon in Leo is squaring Uranus in Taurus. Okay, so take a sip. All right, so we have Mercury's in Cancer, so communicating in a family nurturing kind of way, a mothering, nurturing, Cancerian way, balancing that with, again, purging Pluto in Capricorn. I think, did we not cover that in one of the earlier charts, or was the chart right before now? Anyway, so Mercury, the planet of communication, communicating in a Cancerian way, because this is the thing too, a lot of people only take notice in their own birth charts of where things are placed and ignore empty houses. See, like these. But the empty houses also are just as important. Why did I do that? Why did I say that? There was a point I was trying to make and I've lost the point. Balancing the opposites. Well, I'll come back to it. But yeah, so communicating in a peaceful way. Oh, that's why. That's why. Thank you, Spirit. Because here, see the planet, Mercury, the planet of communication. So now this is how the focus is going to be, because Mercury is going to be communicating like a Cancerian. So say you've got, say this was your chart, which it's not obviously, but say this was your chart. Here's your 11th house being covered by Virgo. So you would approach Aquarius themes. 11th house is the Aquarius house. You would approach Aquarius themes of friendships, groups, social circles, hopes, wishes, dreams, technology. You would approach all that with health, duty, service to others. The Virgo sign, very detail oriented. That's how they'd connect, even though there's absolutely no activity within that house. And the same sort of thing would apply with any other house, like say his 12th house in Libra. Pisces things you would approach in a Libran way, if that makes sense. So the Libra Pisces energies would connect because every Piscean theme. So say your this would be interesting too, because your self-sabotage could be connected to relationships, see? Even though there's no activity in that house. You don't ignore the empty houses. The same that if, say the second house was empty and second house is in Sag, pretend that, well, that's in Capricorn anyway, but it's still, with this chart, it's still covering second house. But say that the second house just was not with that it was empty as well. Well, you would approach your finances and all Taurian things of what you value, who you value, well, who is more about, in terms of Libra would be relationships, but it's more about what you value and your self-worth, because I'll always narrow down the second house and Taurus things as money and self-worth. Now you would approach that as if you were a Sagittarian, so there'd be this philosophical way of doing it. It might be about, it might have to do with higher learning and like university, that sort of thing. Taurus things would connect with Sagittarius things. The two would mix, if that makes sense, even if there's absolutely no activity in that house, if it's a completely empty house. Hopefully I've made sense there. But yeah, so back to this. So we've got the opposite signs again, Capricorn and the Cancerian sign, finding the balance of opposites, purging. Now, again, we're still in now the new moon energy, so purging anything in that sense. It may be more about, in terms of purging, I feel it's more about balancing, not being afraid to step up and take an authority role in something, or be organized, or be more ambitious or more career-minded, not holding yourself back. And in that sense, it's purging using the Pluto retrograde, but still bringing in the new, because you're taking on a role. And this harks back to what I said with the chart before, with the new moon chart again. because we did all that work leading up to the new moon from the full moon that happens on the 11th, I think it's the 11th. Over here at least, it might be the 10th in some places. But yeah, around that time. So yeah, it might still be about that because it's new moon energy. So it's the what you actually do want to do and not being afraid to allow yourself to take on that role. And so now we've got moon in Leo, how we feel safe around creativity, children, romance, love affairs, all those sort of and being in the spotlight because Leo, is center stage. Leo is the one that walks in the room and everyone turns around and looks, whereas someone like Pisces probably tries to very quietly just maneuver into the room without being noticed, without being on show, where Leo is like, here I am, kind of thing. So this is here, the moon squaring Uranus in Taurus. And again, with what we value, including our self-worth, whether it's items, whether it's our finances, a financial thing, maybe it's not being too homely, not sabotaging ourselves by being too comfortable, getting out of our comfort zone, see, because Cancerians love to, be in their jammies all day kind of thing, or be very comfortable and not be forced to do anything. But maybe it's about getting out of your comfort zone, which is where the purging comes in. But after the purging is the Phoenix rising, isn't it? That stereotype really holds sway, so yeah, it has some significance because taking that that chance, taking that chance on ourselves, self-worth, what we value, with the moon in Leo, our creativity, feeling safe in creatively being innovative, and looking at what and who we value, including ourselves, and stepping out of our comfort zone, not being too comfortable in the Cancerian energy, and being the Phoenix rising by perhaps taking on a position, a job position, or something about a career or business, or being in a lead role in some way, or just taking the lead in getting more organized or organizing Cancerian themed things that are going on for you, depending on where Cancer drops in your chart, what house it goes in. But yeah, so again, we're looking at this is the new moon energy still, even though the new moon it was what was it, the 25th or something? The chart before. Yeah, so again, this is because we've done the work in the first half of the month, then we can move into a better position for ourselves that's perhaps more creative, or that we find a creative way to break free and be innovative and take the chance on ourselves, self-worth and all that, to take on a role that we're actually going to be good at and not talk ourselves out of it. That sort of thing. We might see this play out in the wider world too. Someone taking more of a lead role in a good way. And this could be within the government, someone actually someone actually being helpful that's in the government, or connections to the government that that could bring about something that is creative, innovative, breaking the mold, breaking free, and showing who and what they value. This could play out in that sense in the wider world. We may hear of something like that too. See, this is how things can play out, in that sense. Over here we would have, what did we have? We had Uranus. Oh, look, Uranus is still in Taurus, so we've got that matching. But over here it's Virgo. So health, duty, service to others, there'd be this massive health theme if it was Mars in Virgo, but it's Mars in Leo. Again, take notice of where these, what's playing out and what really would be the themes of that particular sign. Does it add up with what's playing out in the wider world? Where else? This guy, wasn't it? Yeah. Oh, sugar. Um, Well, I only did that to sort of reiterate because I kept forgetting to line it all up for you on the tropical side. So yeah, this is the tropical system. This is a topocentric system. But yeah, well, if you don't know by now, and this is the end of the video, so I'm pretty sure you all know that this is the one I go for because it just makes more sense. It just, sorry, but it does. Um, yeah, so I even think that those who follow the what are they called? The seasons, because this follows the seasons, see, as well. But those who talking about things like Lithia, Mabon, I don't know if I'm saying it right, but the witchy sort of seasons that are celebrated, it could, you could work that a lot more accurately with whatever sign the moon is in or whatever at the time, and still celebrate that seasonal you know what are they called? I've forgotten what they're called. Uh, it's not coming to me. But yeah, it could still be work out perfectly fine, even if it's not moon in what you usually used to, you know. Take notice of what's going on, what's playing out. How is it actually playing out? What are the themes? What's the main themes that have been um, going on? Because this is Mercury here in Leo, so it'd be communicating in a very fiery way, whereas here it's communicating in a more gentle way. Which one's going on here? You know, what's going to actually be playing out? It's worth taking a look into it, you know. Um, and we have had situations going on as well in the political arena, which is Capricorn. But Pluto's over here, supposedly in Aquarius, which has nothing to do with government and higher ups at all. But over here it is. And here we go. Pluto's in Capricorn. It just makes sense. On the world stage, we can see if we take notice of what's actually happening, the themes. I know I'm going over and over and over and over the same, but it just, I can't say it enough. It makes sense to me to know exactly where things are placed and how they're playing out. And this sidereal chart, this sidereal system makes so much more sense to me. And I've just seen how things have played out and how my own chart balances out in this system rather than this one, you know, because even my chart ruler is different in this system than it is in this one, and it makes more sense to me in this one because, sometimes there's some people that sort of say they don't really vibe with the signs they supposedly are. Well, that's probably because you're following tropical. Take a look at what you are in sidereal and it'll probably make more sense. I know that I know that that's probably not a positive opinion, or it's certainly not a popular opinion because everyone's used to this. And this is easier to work with because it's chopped up in neat 30-degree sections. It's easier to this is where I used to follow tropical because this is how I first started learning and studying until I came across this system and was like, hang on a minute. I actually came across Vedic first, but Vedic kind of is very involved and kind of goes over my head a bit because there's a lot of no, there's a lot of it's sort of, how do I put it? There's a lot involved with Vedic. There's a guy that explains it so amazingly though, but I don't always get the time to watch his videos. Uh, it's KRS. Um, oh, what's his name again? Kapil Raj, yeah, from KRS. He talks all things Vedic, and that guy is a walking computer. Seriously, I mean, we all, you know, technically all our brains are computers, but that guy, he can just go blah blah blah, you know, and you can literally listen to him for hours on end and learn so much. But even still, a lot of it sort of is very intricate and involved, and I like things to be, quick and simple. There's a lot of like devotional things that you do in Vedic as well, and certain places in your house to put things, and that sort of similar to feng shui in a way, that sort of thing. So it's sort of a little. I've really got to make more time to sort of look into that. But for now, the sidereal here is what I want to keep going with, what makes sense to me, what I can make sense of, what I can connect to what plays out in the world. And this is what makes sense to me. Um, I guess that's just how I feel. I don't know how other people feel about it. Let me know if you want to. Well, I will reply to your messages, and your, not messages, what are they? Comments. Yeah, that. But yeah, so all I'm trying to do here is show you how things can play out. And like I did at the start of the video, what played out last month on that particular moon phase was Aries themes. And that is where, if it makes sense, I'll stick with it. If it doesn't, then I'm questioning, okay, what's going on here? Is it really this or is it that? You know? Um, but yeah, anyway, I hope it has made sense to you guys. I mean, going from tropical to sidereal, it wasn't a simple click of the fingers and I was just straight away sold. It took me a bit of getting used to and going, it kind of does your head in when you realize, hang on a minute, this isn't where you'd see things if you look through a telescope. This isn't where you see things if you go to a planetarium, but this is. So why would this be saying sun's in this sign when it's over here in this one, kind of thing, at this point of time? Now, this is taking, look, we've got 29th of June. So tropical by then are saying, oh, whoever's having a birthday, well, they're Cancerian. But over here, no, they're Geminis. The sun in Gemini. So it's about, what sort of traits are you seeing happening in the wider world? What sort of traits are you seeing within your own personal birth chart even? Are you really gentle Cancerian, or are you more communicative and wanting to talk to friends and, you know, uh, friends and being social and neighborhoods and all that sort of thing? And Gemini are very much, they like to be online and have a lot of friends. Cancerians are very quiet and reserved in a sense, so they can have a lot of friends, but they're very homely. They like creature comforts of home. Is that what that sign Are they really that sign or are they really that sign? You know? Um, it can do your head in initially, and it's sort of like, well, that can't be right. It's got to be this. It can't be right. And then you sort of, it's like you feel discombobulated because you don't want to believe it's this, but then you get to a point where you're like, hang on, this doesn't make sense anymore because now my eyes are open. I see this, and this makes more sense, you know? So, I don't know. I'm just sort of ranting. I don't know how long I've been now, but anyway, if anyone's still here watching at this point in the video, I really wish you all the best of luck. Getting out of your comfort zone and taking a lead role in some way. You know, taking action in that sense, breaking the mold, and not fearing. You know, empowering yourself, I guess, not fearing shaking things up and doing something new, because this is still new moon energy right here, right? Even though this is getting closer to the first quarter square, I think by this time, I think the first quarter square will be early July. But yeah, it's getting close to that anyway. So it's again still the new moon energy bringing in the new. So anyway, with that, anyone who's still here, I wish you all the best of luck with that, being more ambitious with something perhaps, bringing in a new way of doing things, a new way of experiencing things for yourself. Yeah, and I think I'll leave it there. Wish you all the best of luck with that. And yeah, until next time, bye for now.